Welcome to the Win, Make, Give podcast. This is Chad Himes, and I am joined today by my friend Bob Stewart. Hey there, Bob.
Chad, how you doing, buddy?
I am fantastic, and what you might notice is someone that we're not being joined by today, and that's Ben. He gave us a homework assignment and then saw how many calories were going to be in this episode, Bob, and ran off. Yeah. So he's not here with us today.
No, he left. I wonder if he is in front of the freezer right now, kind of partaking in our episode.
Yeah, he's probably finding a way to enjoy this episode, as we're sure many of you will. It's been a conversation in our Facebook group more than once. Join us there, facebook.com/group/winmakegive. Bob, it's been the conversation of ice cream.
Yeah.
And we want to do a few company profiles. And Ben thought the great company for us to start with, since we always argue about ice cream, would be Ben & Jerry's.
Well, this came about, Chad, because you always give me a hard time about my favorite flavor of ice cream being
boring.
Vanilla. In fact, you didn't think Ben & Jerry's made vanilla, but they do.
I didn't, you're right.
And so when we had said to Ben, hey, maybe we should do like a fun episode on ice cream, he said to us, maybe a better idea would be to do a profile on a company that makes ice cream. And obviously that's Ben & Jerry's, right? And I think they've built this brand, and we had a recent podcast where you guys were talking about loyalty and brand loyalty, and I think you mentioned Ben & Jerry's on that podcast. And Chad, you're willing to pay $7.99 for a pint of ice cream, right? Even though you could get Breyers or whatever for $4.99 or $3.99. And there's some reasons behind that. We're going to kind of explore the Ben & Jerry's story a little bit.
Yeah. So, folks, if you have the opportunity, push pause. Go get yourself a pint.
Yeah.
Whatever flavor it is you want. We'll dive into the flavors specific a little later in the episode. But join us on this episode and this company profile while you're enjoying a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So, Bob, talk to us a little bit about this company. Let's just lay some groundwork of the origin of Ben & Jerry's.
Let's go back. So this was 1978, Chad.
You were old.
I was one. Yeah, I was 1 year old when Ben & Jerry took a $5 correspondence course from Penn State University on how to make ice cream. And
awesome.
I had to stop and think, what does correspondence course even mean, right? Like, I think they took it through the mail.
I won't tell you because I had to do that in high school 1 year when I failed.
So Chad's a little bit older than me, but through the mail, right? They did a correspondence course, and they learned through the mail from Penn State University how to make ice cream, and then took a $12,000 investment, $4,000 of which it was borrowed. So they put up $8,000 of their own money, borrowed $4,000, and opened their first scoop shop in Burlington, Vermont.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, these two guys, if you don't know them, it's Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield. So there actually really is a Ben & Jerry behind Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, totally. And one of them, Chad, funny enough, you really loved this. One of them doesn't have a sense of taste.
Yeah, Ben Cohen has what's called anosmia. Okay. And it's a lack of sense of smell or taste.
Anosmia, that sounds made up. Dave, did he just make that up right there?
I did not. I will send you the link.
Anosmia?
That's what the word is, anosmia, okay? It's a lack of sense of smell or taste. And here he's the guy who's creating these flavors that have become staples in our world. This is why, Bob, they have chunks of stuff, because he didn't get enough flavor from just a small little chip or something like that. He needed chunks in the ice cream, which helped create what Ben & Jerry's has become known
and
for.
I think if we think, I don't know, when I think about Ben & Jerry's, it is the chunks of stuff. And in fact, I don't like half their flavors because I don't like chocolate chunks in my ice cream, because then the chocolate gets really hard and it just gets stuck in your teeth, and it's weird, right? It's not like eating a candy bar of chocolate.
That's true.
So, but I am a fan of some of their other flavors, and we'll get to flavors in a little bit.
Yes, we will.
So they start this company, right? It's this one little shop. They're working in the shop.
Do you know the date that they started this company? Because it's really important for everybody listening. Do you know the date they started the company?
No, but I need you to tell me the date, because I think I can get free ice cream on that
You
date.
do, and it's really easy to remember because it's May 5th. Okay, Cinco de Mayo. The 5th of May is the day they started Ben & Jerry's, and every year at the Ben & Jerry's stores, they give out a free cone.
I know where my closest local one is right now, and so I've got Star Wars on May the 4th, Ben & Jerry's on May the 5th.
There you go. And then you can get a Corona to go with it for Cinco de Mayo that evening.
Okay.
All right. So talk to us a little bit more about this company that these guys built together.
So they start this company, a year later, they start the genesis of the idea of giving away free ice cream. On their 1-year anniversary, they did the whole day where anybody could come into the store and get the free scoop of ice cream. And like Chad mentions, it's something they've continued to do at all their actual brand locations for the last, how old am I? Last 42 years, right? So then they start to build, and in fact, one of the guys, I think it was Jerry, they started making the ice cream like in pints, right? So they were getting, they started small. They built this chunky ice cream that nobody had ever had before. We'll talk in a minute about their product mission and the idea that they were sourcing their products and the ice cream and the eggs and all of the ingredients from these local vendors. But they kind of caught fire, right? In their small little town, and they were growing and realized, like, we've got to be able to package this ice cream up and then take it out and sell it in other places. And so they started making the Ben & Jerry's pint, and Jerry would actually drive them around in his truck and drop them off at local grocery stores. It wasn't a couple years later that they opened their first kind of expansion location, we might call it in our world, right? That next store. And ultimately would spread kind of across the United States. About 8 years in, Chad, I want to say it was 1986, they did something that really put them on the map across the United States.
Yeah, now how many of you have seen the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile?
Oh, yeah.
Right? You've driven by it and you've been like, what the heck is that coming at me? And it goes by you and you're like, did I just pass a hot dog, right?
Yeah.
These guys, they had their Cowmobile.
The Cowmobile. So they converted an RV, they painted it like a big cow, and they drove across the country. Ben & Jerry actually drove the RV.
Yep, they did it themselves.
The two of them, and they went across the country giving away free scoops of ice cream. They'd stop at parks and just wherever across the entire United States, all the way across from Burlington into California, and then all the way back to Burlington, Vermont, at which point, Chad, unfortunately, the Cowmobile burned to the ground in Cleveland, Ohio, probably a few hundred miles from their destination, making it home. But the cool thing about that is, think about how many people they exposed their brand to, right? The free ice cream, the chunks, this different type of ice cream that people had never really tasted before, right? They'd never had this chunky ice cream, the flavors, right? These kind of crazy flavors that they were coming out with, and we'll talk about some of those flavors. But it was just like a really innovative way to go get the name of their brand out there, right? Pre-social media, right? There was no other way to go just touch a bunch of people in small towns across the United States back then. They just took this kind of outside the box approach, and this is an approach you see them taking kind of throughout the history of Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, there is, we've seen them, if you saw the movie City Slickers, these guys, Ben & Jerry's became such a thing that they created two characters in the movie City Slickers, the two brothers. It was Ira and Barry coming to me. And they were basically Ben & Jerry's, and they could tell you the perfect flavor to have with everything. These guys became a staple, did Ben & Jerry's. One of the things, Bob, I found so fascinating about the company when we were doing our research on them, they had a policy at the company that said nobody will ever make more than 5 times the income of the entry-level people to the business.
Yeah.
So when they would hire someone at that time, back then it was $12 was what an introductory person to the company got as their hourly wage. Nobody would ever make more than $60 an hour in that situation, even Ben & Jerry themselves. Now, the policy changed when Ben stepped down as CEO, and they ended up having to really kind of open the books to get somebody to keep the company growing at that time. But what an amazing culture that is, that you're building it and saying, hey, like Ben talks all the time, he's everything from CEO to the janitor. That's basically what they were saying. They're saying, hey, new guy, we're not making that much more money than you. We're all in this together.
You look at today's corporations, Chad, the CEO's making, 400, 500 times the entry-level employee. So, yeah, that was definitely, and I would imagine that built a culture inside of their company of loyalty, right? It built a culture of people feeling included and like they mattered, right? And nobody, that CEO didn't matter, 500 times as much as somebody that was just getting started there.
It's amazing. Now, you and I were talking, and I didn't believe you when you talked about something. They are actually responsible not only for their own flavors. I mean, we know they've got their cool flavors.
Cherry Garcia.
Sure,
right.
Which was first named for a rock, star and all that kind of stuff. But they actually invented one of the flavors that we would all consider just a standard flavor of ice cream.
Yeah, the chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream.
It's my wife's favorite.
You know what's fascinating about this, Chad, is so in the flavor came out, I want to say 91 is when they ended up making the pints of chocolate chip cookie dough. But in 1984, they were given a suggestion. They had a board out in their main store in Burlington, Vermont. It was a suggestion board where people could come in and they could make suggestions about, how they do business, how they operate, what flavors they should make, right? Yep. And it was something that they kind of promoted to their customers as they came in. Hey, if you've got an idea, make sure you leave it on the board on your way out. And somebody wrote on that board, chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. And they spent, 2 years later, they actually had kind of invented and they sold it in that one store.
Right.
And then they spent about the next 5 years perfecting it so that it could be an ice cream that they packaged in pints and shipped around the country. And so I want to say it was 1991. They shipped it around the country, right? So they'd had this flavor in their one store for a little while. Took them about 5 years to really perfect it so that they felt confident. And again, we'll talk about that product mission in a minute, but they felt confident in putting their brand on this thing and shipping it around the United States. And within 1 year, it became 20% of their sales of Ben & Jerry's ice cream were chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. The following year, the big brands like Breyers and some of the other big ice cream brands introduced that line because it quickly ascended to the #1 ice cream flavor in the United States.
Yeah, so for all of you who love chocolate chip cookie dough, whatever company you're getting it from, you have Ben & Jerry to thank.
Yeah, that's like, and I said, I don't like hard chocolate in my ice cream. I will let a little chunk of chocolate inside of a cookie dough ball get by.
They had a survey done, Bob, from the public to find out the best Ben & Jerry flavor. And with 60% of the vote, cookie dough was the #1 flavor of Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
It's just amazing how.
But again, the thing to me that really rings out of that is they didn't come up with the idea, right? They purposely asked their customer what they could do, how they could do it better, what flavors they could make, right? And they got that idea from one of their customers. So I would challenge you to think, if you're listening to this, how are you taking the temperature on your own customers to figure out what you could be doing, how you could be innovating, how you could be serving them better?
Yeah, we're not just doing this episode because we like ice cream.
I mean, that's part of why.
Sure, yeah, it was a fun topic. Yet we want you to understand Ben & Jerry's have paved a path for us to all be able to follow with the things that they have created.
And we pay almost twice as much for their ice cream as we pay for anybody else's ice cream.
And I'm happy to do it.
Yeah.
It's portion sized. It might be a big portion.
My wife would disagree that a pint is a portion of ice cream, Chad. You and I know it is.
Of course.
That's a fact. And if anybody disagrees with that, we don't understand where you're coming from.
We're not sure. We were looking and they actually sell, I was showing you, Bob, they sell a lock for the pint that you can put a combination lock on so no one can get into your ice cream. I said it would be useless around our house because when we're going to have ice cream, we're going to just finish the pint.
Yeah, the pint's going by.
Going by. All right. So Bob, we have this company, this company that's been built. And, we talked back in a bunch of episodes ago, we talked about mission, vision, and value. And we had Ben go over the mission, vision, and value and how to create that and all that stuff. And so many people have come back with the challenge of, I don't know how to sum it all up in one statement. And I think it's pretty amazing because when Ben said, how about Ben & Jerry's? How about doing a profile? The first thing that you knew about Ben & Jerry's, other than obviously just throwing the flavors around, was you knew this about their company.
Yeah.
And that's that they have more than one mission statement. They actually have 3 mission statements. They call it their 3-part mission to decision making.
And Chad, this is something that I had stumbled on when when we were going through the process of creating our mission statement, delivering the dream of home ownership everywhere, Ben had given a bunch of us in the organization a directive to go out and like study mission statements. And I had come across Ben and Jerry's back then. And I had even presented it to Ben as like, do we really need one? Like, this is a company that does it pretty well, right? And the reason I even thought to go and look at this particular company is because I think a lot of us think about, or I would have thought going in, and I probably did think this, and this is why I went to track them down, that the social mission they have, right? Because they're everywhere in terms of, good causes, right?
Yes.
They're everywhere there. And so I assumed that social mission was really what drove the entire organization. I would learn later that they've actually busted it up into 3. And Chad, kind of lay those out for us. How do they look at their mission?
Yeah, and I'm going to read all 3 of these for you, and then we'll dive back into some of them in some detail. And their first part is their economic mission asks us to manage our company for sustainable financial growth. So their economic mission asks us to manage our company for sustainable financial growth. Our social mission compels us to use our company in innovative ways to make the world a better place. Their social mission compels them to use the company in innovative ways to make the world a better place. We're definitely going to look at that in a second. And the one that I know you really want to talk about, Bob, is their product mission. Because our product mission drives us to make fantastic ice cream for its own sake. Now, I thought it was fantastic they had 3, yet when I looked a little deeper, they really kind of have 4. Because then they have what they consider central to the mission. And what they say here is that central to the mission of Ben & Jerry's is the belief that all 3 parts must thrive equally in a manner that commands deep respect for individuals in and outside the company and supports communities of which they are a part. So they're not saying one is more important than the other. Their ultimate statement says, we've got these 3 parts and they must thrive equally.
It's interesting because if you look at those 3 things and kind of the descriptions that Ben & Jerry gives to those things, the economic mission is looking out for the interests of their shareholders.
Yes.
Right?
And employees.
Employees,
right?
shareholders, yeah. The social mission.
Wait a minute. Shareholders? I can buy stock in Ben & Jerry's?
Well, they're owned by Unilever now, so I think you'd have to buy the stock in Unilever. But the social mission, when I say shareholders, I just mean the people that have an interest in the company.
Of
employees, course. Ultimately the stockholders of Unilever. But the social mission then is concerned about the interests of the community in which they do business.
Yes.
And the product mission is concerned about the end customer who eats the ice cream. Yep. You and me, Chad.
Absolutely.
Right? So I like that they kind of understood that they've got stakeholders, right? And those stakeholders they should focus on them differently, but equally, right? Because if we just came in and said, look, we're going to have a product mission, we're going to make the darn best ice cream ever, you don't necessarily care about the communities that you do it in, and you buy, products ingredients that aren't as good, and right. But balancing these 3 things is why Ben & Jerry's has become who they've become.
Yeah, and as we dove into it deeper, Bob, which one do you want to look at first?
Let's talk about the product mission for
a
second, because I think about, so in our as we were researching this, what you come to find out is one of the things that they're just ultra dedicated to is their supply chain, right?
Yes.
Where do they get their ingredients? All the way down to their eggs, for example. So the eggs that they use to make their ice cream, it's not like this today, Chad, but at one point they all came from one farm. Now they come from a couple farms, but they all came from one farm. The brownies that they use in my favorite flavor, by the way, which I'll share later, but the brownies they use in that particular flavor all come from one bakery, right? And still today, that bakery makes it. And the reason that they kind of set out to do it this way, well, there was a couple reasons, but the primary reason is they could keep control over the quality of that aspect of their business.
Right.
And so as I think about that from a business owner's perspective, an entrepreneur's perspective, like a lot of times, at least in our world, Chad, the world we come from the real estate industry generally, right? And, if I'm a real estate agent, and I could be a car dealer or an insurance person or whatever, but I've got people out there that I'm doing business with, I'm referring my clients to, they're a part of my process. who are reflecting on my brand. And Ben and Jerry decided really early on that they were going to pay a lot of attention to the people and the parts of the process that ultimately ended up with their customer, right? So that product mission of delivering great ice cream, and they had innovations in there. I mean, today, seemingly silly innovations like chunks of stuff, right?
Yep.
Like today, I think everybody would be like, if I'm buying strawberry ice cream, like I want big chunks of strawberries in
Yes,
there.
nobody wants just little strawberry pieces.
Right,
Yes.
right. But today, now that's obvious. But when they were doing it, it wasn't obvious. So things like that today seem obvious are obviously a part of why the product has been successful. But it has been this ultra laser focus on the supply chain and how they can ensure the quality of the product.
Yeah, they want to make sure that they've got wholesome ingredients, natural ingredients, because the earth and the environment matters to them as well. So we talk about their product and having that supply chain. Folks, you need one around you. So it doesn't matter whether you own a business, you have people in your world on part of your supply chain. You have people, if you're, heck, just in your family. I mean, Bob, you've got 2 little ones. You've got a pediatrician who's in that supply chain for you. And if you don't think they're doing their job right and that they're following medicine practices the way that you support and they're prescribing pills and you would prefer a more holistic, they shouldn't be in your supply chain, right? Your grocery store where you guys go regularly to purchase. Are you going to one that's got, stuff you believe in, or are you just running to the most convenient
I was
one?
gone for you guys doing the loyalty one. And I heard you saying that I'm the same way. You said there, doesn't matter. I'm not brand loyal. If I need something, I go there. I'm the same way. I just go to the closest one. I'm actually building resentment towards my close grocery store. I won't even say the brand that it is, but I go there because it's so close, but I know there's a better one just a little bit further away. I just need to find it.
And if your mission statement mattered enough, maybe you would be sourcing that supply chain better and knowing that there's a better one out there for you.
That's a good point.
And Ben and Jerry's is laying that out for us here as we're analyzing this company. Now, Bob, I was looking at the social mission, and I'm going to say this right up front. I'm going to make no judgment. Okay, there's no judgment. There's nothing that I'm saying. I'm just flat out reading stuff that's here because they care so much about society. They care about the social stuff that I was pulling up some things. And you might know they have a flavor called Chubby Hubby.
I do.
Right? It's one of their flavors, and we won't get into the flavors in detail yet. Yet what did they do when same-sex marriages became legal? They were so supportive of it, they changed the flavor to Hubby Hubby.
Yeah.
Right? And when Obama was elected as president, they renamed a flavor Yes Pecan.
Because it was Yes We Can.
It was Yes We Can was the saying, right? And they have chocolate chip cookie dough was temporarily named I Dough during 2015 in celebration of the Supreme Court supporting the same-sex marriage and stuff. So their social mission compels them to use their company in ways to make the world a better place. And boy, the conversations that get started when they change a name of a flavor to support something, I mean, it's amazing what they can do.
Yeah, for sure. No question about it. And it's funny the kind of press they get on something silly like changing the flavor of an ice cream name. But one of the things that I found interesting about their social mission, and I think we try to relate this stuff back to the folks that are listening. And heck, Chad, we try to relate this to our own business. Their social mission, today we look back at everything they've done over the last, 30 years, and a lot of people would associate their brand with that kind of social advocacy. But their very first, the first foray of them into this was around the idea of like GMO, genetically modified organisms, GMO-free stuff, right? And so they had originally gone in and said, we are not going to use, so it was 1989, they revealed their opposition to the use of RBGH, recombinant bovine growth hormone, in all their products, right? This genetically hormone that they put into cows to make them produce more milk.
Right.
And they kind of came out and said, no. It tied to their product mission.
Yep.
Right. And they really became big supporters of this kind of, the proper labeling of food and the use of certain products. And in fact, much later, when they were owned by Unilever at this point, they were running on their, ice cream that they were 100% all natural.
Right.
And a couple of companies or somebody went out there and did a study on their ice cream and found this really low percentage of some non-organic, and they immediately then just remove that label, right?
Right.
They
Let's remember, for those of you out there, when you're in the grocery store shopping and it says all natural, that means a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Right. When it says, fat-free, that means a certain percentage. So understand that they weren't cheating, they qualified.
Sure.
But that was not good enough for the company to just qualify.
That's right. They took it upon themselves to say, you know what, you're right. Like we want to do right by our customers, by the people that might one day be our customers. And so they were, in many ways, they kind of showed some humbleness there and said, oh yeah, we got this wrong, right? And they took that stuff off of their packaging. But their social mission was really connected early on, Chad, to their product.
Yes.
Right? It was around this idea of GMOs. And I think about Ben and what his business here in Bellingham, Washington has kind of made his social mission.
Yes.
And we've talked about this company before. Ben donates a lot of money, and our companies donate a lot of money to a place called Lydia's Place. And it's a home here for a long time. It had been a home in Bellingham for single moms who are homeless.
Yep.
And it helps them transition into housing. And recently, now in the last couple of years, Ben's put a bunch of money behind them building a home for single fathers who are homeless here in Whatcom County. But that mission for us is tied very closely to what we do, right? Here in Bellingham, Washington, Ben's primary business is we sell houses, right? We're in real estate. We believe that the dream of home ownership is a really big deal. You guys have heard it in our mission.
Yep.
All the aspects of our company line up behind that. But we find social causes. We have a social cause here locally, right? That we promote because it's I don't want to say like it's easy, right? It's easy to pick that one that's in housing because we believe in the dream of home ownership, but it fits.
Yes.
Right? And that's what Ben and Jerry's, their social mission started by being a fit for their organization.
Right.
It's since developed into something much larger.
Yeah. It is amazing, this company. And again, you mentioned it as we were joking that we should buy stock in the company because, well, I eat enough of it. They don't own it anymore. Right, Ben and Jerry have actually sold the company to Unilever, and they run the company. Ben and Jerry are supposedly still involved, yet we don't know. And of course, they would never change the branding of the company. But it is amazing that they can't change the way Ben and Jerry is because they built it on such a strong foundation for what it stood for that even when they sold the company had to keep it true to its values, or nobody would have cared about Ben and Jerry's anymore.
Yeah. They do a lot of amazing stuff. At one point they decided they were going to give 7.5% of their pre-tax profit and started a foundation, right? And that foundation is kind of the driving force behind the social mission aspect of Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, and a lot of their stores are actually, we were reading, locally owned. They are owned in partnership with local communities that are using them for fundraisers. Like they're owned by the nonprofit organizations in the area.
Sounds a lot like Ben partnering with people in different parts of the country for mutual benefit.
It is a fantastic company. It's been a joy to actually dive into them. I will tell you this, folks, don't miss out on the opportunity to enjoy some Ben and Jerry's. But I'm going to remind you that it's health, wealth, leadership, and legacy. So I'm going to remind you, the day you're going to dive in and enjoy some, go earn it with that little extra workout so that you burn those calories before, because there's about 1,000 to 1,200 calories in a pint.
Such a Debbie Downer.
No,
Chad.
I'm not. I go for an extra long.
I can have
Debbie Downer. When I told you that I have ice cream for dinner, you were like, not for dessert? Like, no, I skipped the meal. I go run 6, 7, 8 miles. And then it's Ben and Jerry's for dinner that night, my wife and I. So, all right, Bob, here we go.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to name for us, and I'm going to see how many of them you can get right of the top 10. Then I'll give them to you in order. So these are the top 10 Ben and Jerry flavors figured by sales. Okay, in 2019, because of course we don't have this year's numbers. So name for me the 10 flavors you think are up here, and then we'll see how you did.
All right. Number 1. You ready, Dave? Vanilla. Is it there? Oh, I'm
you
gonna
give me
name
all
them.
10,
Okay.
and then I'll go.
So vanilla, there's the fish food, I think is one. Cherry Garcia would be one. Obviously the cookie dough, the chocolate chip cookie dough would be one. There's a fudge brownie, which I think would be one. There's the heaven send of all the ice cream flavors, Chad. It's called half baked, and they take half of it is chocolate chip cookie dough and half of it is the fudge brownie, and it's just a mix up of magic. So that would be
That's 6. You got me at 6.
That's 6. Oh man, what else do we got? Oh, no, that's fish food.
Yep, you gave me that one.
I'm running out of them, Chad. What else do I got in there?
Just so you know, there's over 30 flavors of Ben & Jerry's.
Chunky Monkey? Is that one?
Okay.
Chunky
Monkey? That is one of my favorites. I'm not going to tell you if it's on the list yet.
All right, so what's the mint chocolate chip? They've got to have a mint chocolate chip, right? That's always a crowd
That is
pleaser.
my other favorite Ben & Jerry's flavor.
That's disgusting because it's got the chunks of chocolate in it.
Bob,
and Ben & Jerry's
so
probably
wrong.
has larger chunks. Okay.
All right. You got
in
8
fact,
on
you
the
know
list.
what? I think their chocolate chip mint is white too, right? It's not the green
That is
stuff
correct.
like we
it's
get.
not the green
glowing
stuff.
green stuff
That
we
is
get from
correct.
the other places. Okay.
This is I folks.
You can
Don't
tell
leave yet.
I didn't look at this in advance, by the way.
No, he didn't, based on the answers he's giving me.
I don't know. I can give you 8. I think
All
I'll
right,
give you
so
8.
Bob, you've given us 8. You've said vanilla. You said half baked. You said fish food, cherries Garcia, cookie dough, fudge brownie, chunky monkey, and mint chocolate chip.
Okay.
All right, so here we go, folks. The top 10 flavors of 2019 of Ben & Jerry's. We'll start at the bottom of the list, Bob. Number 10, milk and cookies makes its debut in the top 10 list this year. Okay.
Right.
So it finally made it. Number 9.
Wait, milk and cookies. Like,
Milk and
isn't
cookies.
that that's cookies and cream, right? Same.
I'm sure it's basically the
All right,
same.
I like
They have
that.
better
That's
names.
Oreo cookies in a
No,
nice
chocolate
vanilla
chip
ice cream?
cookies. Chocolate chip cookies in a
chocolate
vanilla
chip.
ice cream.
Yeah.
Yes, you'd want to look closer at that. Number 9, my favorite, mint chocolate chip makes its first time in the top 10 list.
Okay.
Yeah, surprised it took that many years. Number 8, I know you weren't going to get this one, and that's the Americone Dream. Now, this is waffle ice cream with fudge-covered waffle cone pieces and a caramel swirl.
Caramel, always, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert,
Yeah.
right? The Americone Dream, just so you know. Number 7, strawberry cheesecake. Strawberry cheesecake makes number 7. Number 6, the other ice cream named for a musical group, that would be Fish Food.
Fish food.
Yep, chocolate ice cream, marshmallows, caramel swirl. Oh, that's so good.
It's like Rocky Road ripoff or something.
Yeah,
right?
it's a Rocky Road better. All right, number 5, you've got the chocolate fudge brownie. So there you go, Bob. So far you've named 2.
Fish food and
I got 3 because you got mint chip too.
Mint,
All right,
yep,
so you got 3 on this list so far. Number 4,
vanilla.
chocolate chip cookie dough.
All right. Yeah.
All right, number 4, they've been loving it since 1984.
Yeah.
That's when it officially finally got released. All right. Number 3, the Tonight Dough.
I don't even know what that is.
Now, I'm going to attempt to read this. Looks like it's caramel and chocolate ice cream with chocolate cookie swirls and gobs of chocolate chip cookie dough and peanut butter cookie dough.
I mean, they just went into the ice cream kitchen and they were like, what haven't we put together into one ice cream? Here's some peanut butter, here's some nuts, here's some chocolate, here's some brownies, here's some... All right.
Possibly. And it's starring Jimmy Fallon. It's the Tonight Dough. So I don't know if maybe this was something that Jimmy really likes this mix or if they just named it after him.
I just wonder when I hear that many ingredients, like how much ice cream is in there? Right?
Not too much.
Not too much.
Lots of other stuff. All right. Number 2, cherries Garcia.
There it is.
Right? It's a regular. And
What does
we
that
love
make
it.
me? What does that put? I have 5 of the 9.
You have 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5. I'm going to tell you have 6 of the top 10, Bob.
I do. That's not bad.
Because you got the number 1.
Vanilla!
Even though you didn't get the right number 1. Number 1 was half baked.
Oh,
Your favorite flavor
my favorite.
is
Woohoo!
the number 1
What? That's
flavor of
fantastic.
Pints It reigns over the ice cream aisles, they say, is half-baked.
Love it. Love it. I'm really disappointed that vanilla's not on there. I'm not going to lie.
Bob, you don't go to Ben & Jerry's for vanilla. You go somewhere else if you want vanilla ice cream.
It's the vanilliest vanilla you've ever had, Chad.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed a deeper look. Maybe we'll have to look at the Runts Company as a future company to dive into. We know we can get into a good argument over flavors on the Runts. As we took our time here. Hey, join us in the Facebook group, as I mentioned earlier. That's facebook.com/group/winmakegive, where we talk about our favorite ice cream flavors and so much more as we go through each of these episodes. Make sure that you go grab a pint at the store, grab a friend, let them listen to the episode while you enjoy or fight over the pint, however it is around your house. And until our next episode, make sure after you eat that ice cream, you wash those hands. And as always, like Ben and Jerry, do good.